Hello, 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 beloved listener. I am really, really excited about today's episode. You're not only in for a treat, you're going to get to hear from one of the wisest women I know. I just when I think of Pamela, I think of wisdom, I think of extraordinary. She's got brilliance, she's got skill. She is the OG of being a master Reiki master, and she's just also so kind. So I am thrilled to bring her back. She was on the show a couple of years ago, and we have a really cool topic we're going to talk about today. So, if you've been wondering, like, how do I choose somebody in the healing field? How do I know who to choose? Who's credible? Whether it's for Reiki, whether it's coaching or some other modality, like, how do I even know where to go? We're going to go all into that question and more. But let me tell you a little bit about Pamela first. Pamela Miles is an internationally renowned Reiki master. She's the OG, my friend, and the foremost pioneer introducing Reiki practice to conventional medicine, which is incredible. Over the course of nearly 4 decades, that is 40 years of experience with this spiritual practice, she has collaborated on various projects with academic medical centers, including Yale, Harvard, and the National Institutes of Health. Pamela has been published in peer-reviewed medical journals, including the preeminent Journal of the American College of Cardiology. She has also brought her insights to corporate outlets such as Google and Unilever. I got to tell you, she is the real deal. We're going to talk about real deals here. Pamela's experience in Reiki and integrative health has been featured in mainstream media, including The Dr. Oz Show, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox, The Atlantic, Forbes, and a whole other list. And she also has written she has a book of the award-winning Reiki, A Comprehensive Guide. It is the only Reiki book written for the mainstream public and healthcare professionals. So when she's not helping her private clients strengthen their health and well-being, she is championing her Protect Reiki, her initiative to defend the public's freedom to practice Reiki as they choose. Pamela is a mother of 2 adult children. She has adorable grandchildren. We were just talking about them. And she lives in New York City. And Pamela is also a dear friend. So Pamela, I am so excited to have you back here. I always love our conversations, and I'm so glad we're going to record this one.
Yes, I love our conversations too. And we just have to try not to giggle too much. We have too much fun.
I know. I think it's what gave me the hiccups, which is so funny. So if you're listening, I'm just saying you're welcome. We paused and waited. I was like, oh no, we were laughing so much. I started getting the hiccups, which I think is a thing. And we waited so that you wouldn't have to hear me hiccup. But we just might giggle. This is what happens when we get together.
That laughter is of the heart, Julie. Like
Oh,
sometimes in my Reiki classes, and when the room is quiet and my students are practicing on each other, I'll watch somebody kind of struggling like this, trying to swallow their laughter. And I always tell them, just let it go, and then
yeah.
finally it bursts out and it ripples through the whole room. Everybody
Mm,
starts laughing and giggling, and you can feel like bubbles of joy in the room. And then in its own time, it just settles down and the room seems even more still than it was before.
yeah.
So that's one of the many things that I treasure about our friendship, because I can
Mm.
feel those bubbles of joy arising.
I love that. Bubbles of joy. Ooh. And laughter, well, that's its own healing force right there. Laughter is
Yeah.
just so important. I always can tell when it's going to be a great interview because my cheeks start to hurt from laughing and smiling. And I'm literally they're getting a workout, like they're actually hurting right now. So I think that is a good thing. Those heartfelt laughs, smiling. So if you're listening, we hope you're smiling with us because it's good for you and it makes you feel good and it's contagious. It's a good contagious. It's a good contagious. Well, I am so excited. This topic, I think, is a very important topic. You and I were talking a little bit just about how, business and things are shifting. And I'm curious for you. I know when I started coaching, I mean, I got into it about 15 years ago, but did my degree 10 years ago. And since then, it is, I mean, it just continues to blossom, which is great. And there can be challenges with that. And I would imagine for you, you have been doing this over 40 years. You are the original Reiki master. You've brought it to conventional medicine. And in a good way, there's a lot more people that are Reiki certified and trained. However, I think it begs the question, how do you know who to go to? How do you know who to trust or to feel to choose as someone to be your practitioner, to be someone that you're going to go see? And I feel like we just kind of go right into it. Yeah, let's just go right into that, because I think it's an important question.
Yeah, it's a very important question. And, of course, I can speak to the Reiki perspective, but I do want to underline that this is true in all unlicensed areas. And there are many areas in healing as distinct from medicine. Conventional medicine, clearly, we need licensing to protect the public, right? You don't want a surgeon who didn't finish medical school.
No, you don't.
But for Reiki, the National Institutes of Health has stated clearly on their website that there's no evidence of harm attached to Reiki, and licensing is to protect the public from harm. So there's no reason to have licensing for Reiki practitioners or coaches. And I don't want to, get into the political side of this too much, but there are other fields that this is true for also. So without licensing, people look for certification, and they don't realize that certification is not unified. Like people say, I'm a certified Reiki master, but certified by whom? There's
Yeah.
no agreement in the Reiki community about what Reiki practice is, never mind about the amount of education or the type of education that you need to have to be a professional, to practice on other people. And it's not that Reiki practice is ever unsafe. If you're really practicing Reiki, but people don't realize there's been a lot of changes in the field, unacknowledged changes. So without asking questions, when somebody says, I practice Reiki, we just don't know what that means to them. And many people are practicing using actually shamanic techniques, which are wonderful, but they're not Reiki practice.
Mm.
So it's really a buyer beware market. But let's be clear, nobody is dying from an unexpected Reiki treatment, right?
Yeah.
The risk involved here is really, really minimal. So it's not so much a matter of protecting the public as it is maximizing your benefit and your enjoyment.
Yeah. Let's do, I think before we even go deeper, let's level set for a minute, because I can just hear someone who's listening is, well, you said there's even kind of a conversation of what is Reiki. Let's just define for those who might be rusty or don't know what Reiki is, which is fine. When you say, we talk about Reiki practice, to define what that means. I think we level set with that first.
Okay. Probably most people think that Reiki is energy medicine.
Right.
And actually, that's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Reiki is a spiritual practice, more like an applied meditation, a meditation that you make with your hands, we could say. But it's a spiritual practice that, like all spiritual practices, has healing benefits.
Beautiful.
Because all spiritual practices are to help us align with our deepest self. And when we're in profound alignment like that, we move through life supported from within. We move through life with more awareness and more information and intelligence than we do when we're not aligned. So a lot of things go better. And because this is so current today, you know, the down regulation or the balancing of the nervous system is something that happens spontaneously with Reiki practice. If you're upregulated, if you're in threat mode, you know, if you're frightened, fight or flight, and you practice Reiki, your nervous system is like, oh, okay. You know, your nervous system has been on edge for so long that you
Yeah.
think it's normal. It's not normal. Your usual is probably not normal. That's
Yeah.
just the way, that's what we're living with these days. So your nervous system says, oh, okay, got it. And it starts to self regulate. But that happens from within us.
Yeah.
We don't practice to make our bodies do blah, blah, blah. We practice and we give it to the intelligence within our system. You know, I think of it like ET phone home. Like, okay, the body can take it from here. And that starts usually with the, you know, balancing of the nervous system. So when you approach Reiki as a spiritual practice, which we have evidence is the way Mikao Usui, the founder of the lineage, saw it, it also, of course, has medical applications because a balanced system can self-heal.
Mm,
And
yeah.
conventional medicine, for all the wonders of modern medicine, and we don't want a world without hospitals, right? But conventional medicine is generally traumatizing for so many reasons. Life-saving surgery is traumatizing. Your body is frightened, you know, it shuts down because of the trauma, even with the anesthetic. So when Reiki practice is offered to patients around surgery, in my clinical experience, they heal about 3 times faster than the norm. It can sound magical. Oh my goodness, you know, but it's really normal, you know, because
Yeah.
when a system isn't traumatized and the response to Reiki practice is the release of trauma, then your self-healing mechanisms are able to function optimally. So that's the short version, Julie. Sorry.
I Oh, I love it. It's really helpful. I have one other quick question about that. However, what I want to say is thank you for the reminder. And I can just hear wherever you're listening, we love you and reminding you your body, it's set up for self-healing. This is true. And thank you for the reminder of that. And that Reiki, you know, such a great example that paired, you know, if you're going into surgery or some kind of, you know, conventional medical procedure, you've seen 3 times the healing with Reiki. That's very powerful. Um, for those who may not know much about it, just so we can explain it, I know some people will be listening, some will be seeing it. I'm starting to use my hands. The maybe explain, like I know that you know the hands in the different positions and the idea of the universal life force, how you would describe what's actually happening, because I think that might be helpful too. What's actually happening? Because if you haven't been to a Reiki session, you might think, oh, what actually happens there? I know that I fall asleep and get into the most peaceful place ever when I am going for a Reiki treatment. Side note, but anyhow, if you wouldn't mind sharing, Pamela, I think that would be helpful.
I'm happy to share. And I just want to say that I can share the way I practice. There's so much diversity in the Reiki community that it's not possible to represent everybody's perspective on Reiki practice. But my practice is as Hawaii Takata practiced, and that's the Reiki master who brought the practice from Japan to the United States in the late 1930s, just before World War II. So it's very at the entry level, the first degree Reiki level, which is all the training that most people need. It's very simple, light hand placement. This is how I practice the crown of the head, the face, the throat, the back of the head, the chest, and then fingertips at the solar plexus, your hands straddling the lower ribs, the navel, and the lower abdomen. So if you go for a Reiki session, you should be clothed and either seated comfortably or lying on a treatment table. And if you came to a session with me, then I would place my hands lightly, touching, but very light touch, not leaning, it's not pressure or anything like that, on those 8 placements. And then I'd ask you to turn over, and there are 4 other placements on the back when I'm treating someone else. For ourselves, we just use 8 placements. And it's
And
equally effective. If sometimes people ask me, well, I have limited funds. I don't know whether to come for a session or to learn to practice. Always learn to practice,
yeah,
because one class, if you make a good choice, you can practice on yourself every day, more than once a day if you need it, when you need it, for the rest of your life. So it's really a one-time investment. And, if you don't have to choose, then do both, of course,
yeah,
because it's lovely to have somebody else take care of us, but nothing replaces our self-care.
yeah. This is, and I'll just give a little shout out to Ellen Szynski, who actually connected me to you. I had done level 1 with her and was really struggling with regulating my nervous system, and was like, I was looking and looking, what can help me? And I had gone for Reiki treatments. I did not realize I could do it on myself. That has been one of the biggest gifts. I mean, it's literally, talk about self-love, right? I don't know. This is one of the most loving self-love gifts you can give to yourself, is literally giving yourself Reiki and learning how to do that. So, and Ellen actually connected. She showed me your book and I was like, who is that? I need to connect with her. I need to meet her. She said, oh, I love Pamela. She stays here sometimes. And that's when we connected, I don't know, 4 years ago, maybe 5 years
More than
ago.
that.
And
Yeah,
it
more
was
than
more. Yeah, it was more than that. And I think, for people to understand, I had someone who had taken with her. I know, of course, you obviously teach it. How do we, so those that are like, I want to get, Reiki level 1 certified, this kind of goes to what we started with, Pamela, right? Like, obviously you're incredible. Anybody and everybody, I would highly recommend learning anything with you. But somebody who hasn't met you or doesn't know you yet, they see a Reiki certification. It's a 2-hour Zoom program on the internet. How do we know? Is there a way to kind of know which courses and programs and certifications are the most advantageous and in integrity versus not so much? What would you say to someone who's really, or trying to find a practitioner? Like, how do we differentiate?
There's a few things that I really encourage people to look at, and most of the questions you're just gathering information, and then at the end you'll look at it all and decide. But there's one question that to me is a deal breaker. So why don't we start with that?
Yeah.
Because if you don't get the answer that you want for that, there's no reason to find out anything more. And that is simply to see if the professional or the teacher practices hands-on self-reiki every day. Because
Mm.
that's what spiritual practice is, to take care of the wellness that is always in our system and support that expressing, not to use our practice like a fix, run ourselves ragged, and then when we break down, we practice. So every day since I learned to practice in 1986, I've practiced every morning on myself. And part of the reason why I knew to do that was because I was a meditation teacher when I first experienced Reiki, and I'd been meditating and practicing yoga for almost 25 years. So I understood the spiritual practice piece,
Mm.
let's take good care of ourselves now, to be like a spiritual champion. I mean, training for life, in a sense, the way Olympic champions train for their sport. And of course, training for life with Reiki practice is a whole lot easier than being a champion swimmer or something. But ask that question. And if the person says, no, I just practice when I need it, she's revealed herself to have a medical perspective. Like Reiki
Mm.
is a fix.
Mm.
Because if you think about it, when don't we need help? When don't we
Mm.
need centering? When don't we need support and balancing? Every day, there are hundreds of things that overstimulate our system, that knock us off balance.
Yeah.
And what do we have to bring us back to ourselves? So for me, that's the most important question.
Mm.
And then I would look to see, is the training live and interactive? We can learn a lot of things from canned videos, but I don't think that it is the optimal learning environment when it comes
Yeah.
to spiritual practice. I also don't feel that you need to be in the room with the teacher for self-care. If you're going to learn to practice on other people, there's a point, if you're training as a professional, in which, yes, you want to be in the room with your teacher. But the main focus right now is on self-care. People need to take better care of themselves.
Yeah.
And so you want to find a class that is accessible to you in
Mm.
terms of schedule and location. And I started teaching, I've been teaching in person since 1990, but I started teaching online in 2019, January 2019. So I had over a year of teaching online before the pandemic hit. And it
Yeah.
was easy to pivot at a time when people really needed that. And at first I thought that online was second best, but I have to say, Julie, I found that people really learn very well in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've had people fly from China to study with me, which, of course is touching, but excuse me, in this day and age, it just seems really unnecessary to learn to take better care of yourself. So that the class is interactive, the teacher self-practices, and then look at the length of time.
Mm. Okay.
I have almost every class I give, I have at least one person who has taken at least one other Reiki class, and sometimes four, because they're not finding what they want. Often a teacher is handing them a manual. They're not even practicing together, and that's not how people learn.
Right.
So my first degree classes are between 10 and 12 hours, and 3 sessions spaced out over at least 3 days, sometimes a week, so that you learn how to practice, and then you have some time practicing on your own, and then we come back together and you can, ask the questions that only come up when you're trying to do something on your own, right?
That's right. That's right.
And yet having that time to practice on your own between class sessions is so important, because that's when you start to own the practice. That's when
Yeah.
you realize, I can do this.
Right.
It's different than practicing as a group. And you realize there are many ways you can experience your practice. So I think that looking then at the class fee is the last thing you want to look at. And I would be careful of fees that are too low. Maybe not
Mm.
what people are expecting to hear. This is a one-time investment. So you want to get the best training you can, because then it can be a one-time investment. You don't want to wind up like the lady who was in a recent class and had taken 4 other Reiki classes.
Mm.
And at the end of our class, I always ask people, take a moment, remember who you were when the class started, why you came. Did you get what you came for? Is there anything missing? You know? And she said, this was so much more than I expected. And I feel complete. I feel like I don't need to take any more training.
Yeah.
And that's how you want to feel at the end of your class, because after the first degree class, you don't become a better Reiki practitioner by taking more classes. You
Mm.
only do that by actually practicing. So a teacher who immediately wants you to become a Reiki master, this is really American spiritual consumerism.
Mm. Mm.
People
Mm.
don't need to become Reiki masters. In the old days, being a Reiki master meant being a teacher. That's the only reason why you would become a Reiki master. But there have been a lot of misunderstandings and changes since the practice came to the US, because people who saw a good thing didn't know how to support, how to be a good custodian of the practice, because it was so new.
Right. Right.
It's like the way that Native Americans um, are often wary of sharing their practices. I have a friend who is a curandero, and she feels very strongly, and it makes a lot of sense to me, and I respect her opinion, that anybody who wants to burn sage and clear their space, that's fine, but don't call it smudging,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
smudging is a Native American ceremony. It's a ritual.
Yeah.
So we're navigating a lot of unknowns here. Even those of us who are really trying to be very conscious, we just don't always have enough information. So look for a teacher who can help you navigate the uncertainties of learning a practice without telling you, without having too many do's and don'ts, because this practice is simple.
Mm. Yeah. Great reminder.
And that's one of the greatest benefits of it, is its simplicity. But Americans have largely added on a lot of complication because they didn't understand spiritual practice to begin with, and they didn't self-practice long enough to be able to appreciate
Yeah.
what can happen. And that leads me to my last point, is that a teacher or a professional who practices daily self-reiki will always understand the practice with a depth and a nuance that only comes with practice. And
Right.
that will help the teacher maintain healthy boundaries.
Mm. Yeah.
Because the teacher or professional understands that the response to Reiki practice comes from within you, and they don't need to mess with you and make it look like this or make it look like that. They don't need to be validated by their students and clients. So
Mm.
a mature professional like that has a lot more space, guidance, and support as you seek it out.
Hey, beautiful you, it's Julie. I'm just pausing for a moment because I want to share, in case you don't have this yet. I am going to encourage you to get your hands on my tool set to design your best life. It is free. Here's the copy. And it is pretty darn amazing, if I may say so myself. It is a 25-page guidebook. There are 7 specific practices, one for each day of the week, that are going to help you really to design your best life, to work on your mindset, on your mindfulness practices, designing your day very specifically. I'll show you here. I have a gorgeous tracking system that is all about how you align your values with how you're spending your time. And there's so much more. There's also a little extra free gift in there. I won't tell you what it is, but definitely make sure you get this for you, for your friends, whomever. It is free. Just go to juliereisler.com/toolset to get your copy. And would love to hear, what is your favorite tool out of the 7? Which one did you resonate most with? There is also an audio track in there as well. I've shared one of my quick grounding meditations. So I hope you pick it up. juliereisler.com/toolset. It's free. It's for you. I've used these tools with hundreds of clients and my coaching students, and I use them with myself. So I hope they help you to be your Youest You. All right, back to the show. Thank you, Pamela, for sharing this. It's so interesting how similar this is to coaching in my mind, in my humble opinion. I always say, is the coach you're thinking of working with, do they have a coach themselves? Have they been coached? Are they being coached? Are they, is this Reiki practitioner, are they practicing every day self Reiki on themselves? That to me, that would be a little bit of a flag if they're not. I like how you said that. And that, this was your last point, but that, a teacher who practice on themselves that, every day has a depth of understanding and a depth. They're living and breathing this spiritual practice. And that is such an important aspect to add. I also thought, just as that reminder, when you look at the training, right? Is it live? Is it interactive? I've seen this also just having, coaching certification program where people come in who've done these famous coaching programs and they're like, I didn't get what I needed. I'm like, yeah, because you got to practice and it helps to have it live and interactive. And it's not just giving you a script. There's similarities in this, right? That live, that interactive, checking how much time is it, with you, 10 to 12 hours, 3 practice sessions. So, the courses that are 2 hours on video with no live interaction, my opinion for Reiki, that's not going to give you the experience and the depth that you're going to want. And to your point, we don't want to have to invest 5 times as much into something that it's a one-time investment. I mean, I can say I just did level 1, not just, but I did level 1 and really feel like that's great. I don't you don't have to go on to 2, and of course becoming a Reiki master. That I was like, okay, that's a whole other thing. But it is interesting. I love these points that you made and these kind of litmus test questions, because even though thankfully you're not going to harm yourself if you do a 2-hour video course, you're just not going to get the maximum benefits, like you said. And there's so many benefits. I wanted to ask you about a little bit of the going back to what happens when you're using, doing Reiki, and you're going to be able to share this better. I mean, I remember reading this, the idea that this, what happens? So you put your hands when you're giving Reiki to somebody, you know, it can seem like, is this magic? How is this happening? What is coming through my hands? Can you share a little bit about the universal life force, the hand position? I remember in my class, they talked about, we would talk about when we've used Reiki and had actual physical shifts in our body, healings from it. Maybe just to share for a minute, what could seem very quote unquote magical is actually, it's not magical.
Yeah, and I actually think that the whole universal life force energy is a mistranslation.
Mm.
That's an energy medicine perspective. And with energy medicine, something's coming at you from the outside. Whereas with spiritual practice, it's a flowering, a balancing of your own being.
Mm.
And it's interesting to me that I have this perspective because I was already a healer when I learned to practice Reiki. I was already working with clients and teaching meditation and, doing what would now be called probably mind body medicine. And one of the things I loved about Reiki practice was that I didn't have to do anything. Like it had been on me as the healer. I have to make this happen. And now all of a sudden it was just about my presence and placing my hands or working, with a remote client. But what I saw happening was that the client responds to Reiki touch as my system responds to Reiki touch when I self practice. So our hands are a necessary but not sufficient element.
Right.
It's an interaction, it's an unfolding. And we are relying on the innate intelligence that is the human body, that is the human system. Because I don't think we're
Mm.
just physical beings, but we don't have to, we can just talk about the physical because that's what we agree on, right? We all agree that we have physical bodies. And so I was trying to work this out because, in the 90s, the way I was asked to create the first Reiki hospital program was that I had a program at Gay Men's Health Crisis in which I was teaching guys with AIDS, some of whom were really sick. And this was before the protease inhibitors and the treatments that we have now. And a lot of people were dying and there was just so much pain and suffering. And I watched what happened with them as they self-practice. I wasn't treating them. I
Mm.
was teaching them to self-practice.
Wow.
And I heard their stories. We would have reunions and people would share what was happening. And I started trying to work it out from a physiologic perspective because I could see that there was physical change happening. Little did I know that there was an emerging medical field, psychoneuroimmunology, and those doctors were doing the same exact thing. So what we see is that in response to Reiki touch or Reiki practice, and for an as yet unknown mechanism, the system responds, it remembers its capacity to balance and self heal. You can't self heal until you're in your parasympathetic dominant state. So if you're upregulated, if you have sympathetic overdrive, you're locked into that trauma or that fight or flight. You have to let go of that first. And if you've ever tried to tell somebody who is locked in to let go of it, it doesn't work, But I've seen even people with severe PTSD have slept their first night after Reiki treatment or after,
Mm.
the first night of a Reiki class. And if not the first night, they're sleeping better within a week. And my understanding is, and now this is the subjective part, this is the opinion part, is that because it's a spiritual practice and safety is a spiritual issue,
Mm.
you know, addressing uncertainty, the acute uncertainty of human life, even in the best of times, this is a spiritual concern. This isn't something science can address. So as a spiritual practice, I think that there's a foreground background shift, and the system remembers its essence, your essence, my essence. And then that comes to the fore, and people feel safe because they're experiencing their timeless core.
Mm.
They're not locked into identifying with these human bodies, which have a shelf life.
Yeah.
So as long as we think this is all we have going for us, there's a lot of anxiety. But then when we experience ourselves as spiritual beings, and
Mm.
what's a spiritual being? Your spiritual being is the person you're with when you're alone.
Mm.
That's your companion. That's who you think you are, really. It's what gives your life a sense of meaning. It's what engenders a sense of service.
Yeah.
It's love. It's your state. And spiritual practice is how we nurture and maintain ourselves in a good state. Physiologically in a parasympathetic state, unless we really are in danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it all flows from there. Whereas in conventional medicine, for all the benefit, they're trying to work from the outside.
Mm.
But the underlying problem is on the inside. So Usui referred to Reiki practice as the spiritual medicine for all disease.
I love that.
Because every piece of unhappiness, every disease has a spiritual element to it.
Yeah.
And we're the only ones who can really engage. We may have spiritual mentors and teachers, but our spiritual self is ours alone, and our spiritual engagement is ours alone. Nobody can do it for us, and we can't phone it in.
Yeah. It's interesting as you were talking about, who we really are, right? We're not our bodies. Our bodies are the vehicle that we travel in this lifetime. That's my way of saying it, at least.
Mhm.
And, connecting in to, like you said, this, you're a spiritual being, to your spirit, to your inner world. And I was thinking that's exactly the point of this show, right? The idea of being your Youest You. That's it. It really is. It's a spiritual beingness, a spiritual exploration. It is, I love that, the spiritual medicine for all disease. And I 100% believe that at the core of every dis-ease, there's something deeper to understand and learn. And that, I know for me with Reiki, it's so interesting because it's gentle. It's not, it's not like a sexy pill that you take. I don't take sexy pills, but it's not like I'm trying to, it's not like, here, go take this and in 5 days. It's just, I have found though that it's such profound regulation slash, it's like, and I meditate as well. It's a different feeling though. I find it to be so calming. And there's something, I interviewed a woman who did a lot of research about the power of touch in the NICU and how it's healing. I mean, we know as human beings, we thrive from touch. And these infants, these preemies that were literally healed from touch. And I was thinking about, I don't know that they were doing Reiki, but that importance of that touch and that connecting into your spiritual essence. And of course, doing that for ourselves. So I love the focus on, we all have the ability, and if you choose to, you can make your spiritual engagement, your huge part of your life. It can add healing and joy and a whole sense of grounding when things can feel very ungrounded.
Yeah, it's the sea change that floats all boats,
Yeah.
and so it's not to say that life will never be difficult again, but you'll never be alone and helpless with your pain and suffering. That
Mm,
makes a huge difference. It's
yeah.
empowerment. Empowerment is a spiritual matter. And when we support our state, support our sense of empowerment, then we can enjoy challenge. We can learn from challenge. We can be stimulated by it instead of being overwhelmed and constantly doubting ourselves.
Yeah.
Which
Beautiful.
leads me to one other thing I wanted to say about choosing a coach or a Reiki professional or teacher is to trust yourself. Just take
Yes,
time
Pamela.
and,
Yes.
look at the options and trust yourself. Let yourself gravitate toward the person who, meets your credibility quotient, but also the person with whom you feel comfortable, you feel safe, you feel a rapport with. Because this, whether it's coaching or it's Reiki practice, from my perspective, it's all spiritual support. You may be able to get your
Absolutely.
bone, a broken bone set by a doctor who's a creep, but you're not going to be able to let in profound spiritual support from somebody that you're just not well aligned with. And it doesn't have to be that there's anything wrong with either one of you. Some people are just more compatible and some people are less compatible.
I am so glad that I was going to ask if there was any last just kind of thing to keep in mind. And that to me, I'm putting my hand in my heart as I say this, because I know for me and many people, our lesson is learning to trust ourselves, to totally trust ourselves. And this is a good example where, you don't have to judge why you may or may not feel an affinity with someone. I love what you said, though. Where do you feel safety? Where do you feel rapport? Where do you feel comfortable and aligned? And as you said that, I forget the word, but you said kind of this, check out their credential quotient or compatibility, and in the end, trust your intuition, trust yourself, which comes back to, being embodied, trusting what your sensations, what you're feeling, what you're sensing in yourself. Which, by the way, I personally believe, well, I definitely know coaching can help you to become more intuitive. I feel Reiki self-practice has helped me to feel more in tune with my body and my inner wisdom, for sure.
Absolutely. It because you let go of the clutter.
Yeah.
That, I mean, our intuition doesn't get any stronger. Our intuition is always strong. It's part of our survival. But we trust ourselves, maybe that's the
Yeah.
essence of spiritual growth, is daring to trust yourself, and
Yeah.
realizing you're going to get better at it, but not if you don't start and see where it takes you, and instead of this right and wrong, constant second guessing, just take a step,
Yeah.
gravitate.
Mm,
People often ask me what they need, and I'll ask them, what do you want? Act on your wants before they become needs.
beautiful.
Trust yourself
Yeah.
that intensely. Your
Mm,
wants are not insignificant. And what I find is that when people are really honest with themselves about what they want, it's a tremendous relief to them,
yeah.
because our heart's
Absolutely.
desires are good.
100%. That, to me, that the heart's desires is like, I get the image, Pamela, of like a megaphone. Like if your heart had a megaphone and was trying to get, its point across, like its wishes across, like let's listen up. The heart, I mean, we could go into that for days on the intelligence and wisdom of our heart. I love that reminder, though, to act on your wants before they become a need. It's really beautifully said. I so appreciate you, the work you're doing in the world. You have incredible classes and Facebook community, your book, your experience, your speaker. I mean, you're just, your wisdom is like light years beyond. Anytime I am about to open my mouth about Reiki, I'm like, wait, let me just look and see what Pamela said or what she wrote, or let me check in. And I'm usually wrong, but you are so, it's beautiful, because I'll tell you, as you're all listening, I can tell you that Pamela lives and breathes what she's talking about. And to me, that's alignment. That's embodiment. That's, there's integrity to that for me. Like I know when I have gone for Reiki treatments, I always am looking for somebody who practices on themselves. It's the same thing with coaching. I work with coaches who have coaches who have been coached, who use these tools in their life. And I think there's a level of just compatibility, alignment, integrity in doing that. So thank you for being here today. Is there any last, I call them heart flares, any heart flare that any flare that your heart wants to like use a megaphone and say to any of our beloved listeners?
Just a reminder that, as St. Francis of Assisi said, that which you seek is that which is seeking. You know, our heart's desire is in our heart, and we'll never be satisfied with even the best life circumstances if we don't turn inside, because that's where the love is, that's where the joy is, that's where the gratitude is, that's where the meaning is. And spiritual practice, whether it's Reiki or, you know, having the support of a coach or meditating, choose what is a good fit for you. It, you know, because you want to then actually practice. If you don't actually practice, there's no lasting benefit. But the
Yeah.
daily spiritual practice is how we discover ourselves, how we explore inside and discover who we really are and what we're really capable of. And it's good. I promise you that.
Mm. That is a beautiful place to just let it be. I love it. Beautiful. It is good.
Thank
Yeah.
you so
You,
much, Julie. I always enjoy our time together. And um, even if you get it wrong about Reiki, you love the practice and you have a relationship with it that is so beautiful and so true. Who cares about the words? And I generally care a lot about the words, you know, because
I
I'm
love that.
communicating with people who are skeptical. So I have to be very mindful, you
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
that's not more important than the heart.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's part of your, oh my gosh, it's part of why we love you, Pamela. Thank you. And just, I know this is going to be helpful for all of everyone listening. And I just appreciate you and the way that you're really living this work, and sharing it. I know you've been doing this with many, many thousands of, probably more than that, people all over the globe. I want to also thank you, my beloved soul listener. I'm so grateful for you wherever this is coming to you. Both Pamela and I are so honored to be here. I'm speaking for you, Pamela, but I know you are. We're honored to be here in your earbuds. And, I really hope this is helpful. Reiki, I can just say from personal experience, and you've heard Pamela, of course, especially self-Reiki, practicing on yourself is, it's been incredibly healing for me. And also, of course, a spiritual practice, but I think for me, one of the most important aspects is that, it's that self-love, it's that commitment to making the time and effort to love myself and to give back to myself. I personally, in addition to doing it in the morning, I love going to bed at night with my hands on my heart. There's something about that that is so special and so precious. So we will have all of Pamela's information in the show notes. And please check out everything she's doing. She's incredible. Her courses, her retreats, her events, like anything by Pamela is top notch, high level, like the best of the best, really. And I can't, I can't recommend her even more. I can't, like, seriously, her work is just pristine. And I hope that this is helpful for you. And the bottom line is, I also hope you got to trust yourself, to trust your intuition, to trust your inner guidance. And that is your birthright. That is what guides us to our inner home, to our feeling connected, and to you being your Youest You. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Pamela. It was an honor and a gift. And love to you and love to every one of you. Thank you for being here. We send our love and blessings.
Thank you, Julie. Always a treasure.
My friend, I'm so grateful and honored to be here with you on your journey and being your Youest You. Thank you for watching this episode, for being part of this incredible community and this mission to really step into your light, to your highest purpose. I believe that as we all do that, we all can really be our best selves and uplift consciousness and humanity. So thank you. I also wanted to say that if you are looking for greater support right now, maybe you're having a health concern, or you're looking to really step into that next version, best version of yourself, please come connect with me, whether it's for more resources or coaching or guidance. I would love to support you in any way that I can. Just go to juliereisler.com. You can book a powerful one-on-one breakthrough session there. You can connect with me. I would love to meet you. I'd love to hear how I can be on this journey with you. And before I forget, if you'd like a little more of this good vibe tribe and would like to digest these episodes with a high vibe community, just go to Facebook and look up the Youest You podcast community. You'll find us there. Love always. And thank you so much for taking the time and energy to truly stepping into your authenticity and being your Youest You.